You think you know the story, the name, Croft. You picture the swagger, the hardware, the easy confidence of a woman who's already won. Forget it. Burn that picture. In 2013 they showed us a whole new story, the first story. The one where a legend gets dragged kicking and screaming out of the mud. This is the story of Yamatai. Because you see, some names get too big, too clean. By the late 2000s, Lara Croft was a brand, known quantity, but the love was gone. The marketing gurus were working hard, but the industry had moved on. The cinematic action genre had a new playbook, and she just wasn't in it. The lore had become a tangled mess. The suits at Square Enix knew the formula was stale, so they handed the keys to Crystal Dynamics with a simple directive: find the pulse. Their answer was to burn the house down. Go back to year zero. You see, this wasn't an accident, this was a demolition. Taking on a reboot is a delicate undertaking, but the team was committed. Their first order of business was to end the previous chapter. According to Jeff Wajcs, the senior designer, the original plan for the Underworld DLC was a standalone chapter which would feature the death of Lara Croft. She was to heroically sacrifice herself to save the world. That's right. The plan was to kill Croft. The project never got far, but it shows you the mindset. They needed a clean slate. Lead writer Rhianna Pratchett confirmed this when she told The List, "We're starting afresh, we're not starting from the previous canon." The project that became the reboot started life as a straight-up survival horror game. But the biggest change, according to Wajcs, came when they pivoted. To quote him, "This coincided with the biggest change we made to Lara herself, where we decided that this was an origin story. That was a bold change, but it felt immediately correct." From there, the three pillars were established: survival, resourcefulness, and a heavy investment in cinematic storytelling. And to handle that story, they had a specialist, Rhianna Pratchett. Yes, the daughter of one of the greatest writers to ever put words to paper. As a side note, my favourite author, and Mort ignited my love of reading as a youngster. But this wasn't a nepotism publicity stunt hiring. She had her own backlog of work, and her involvement was a clear signal of their intent. This wasn't just a writer for hire, this was a statement. Pratchett had already built a solid reputation for writing compelling, grounded female protagonists in a genre that has often struggled with them. You can see the patterns from her previous works. With Nariko and Heavenly Sword, she wrote a warrior bound by prophecy and familial duty, making her tragedy feel more personal. With Faith Connors in Mirror's Edge, she created a character whose rebellion was rooted in personal loss, not just a generic fight against the overall man. Her signature move was grounding extraordinary women in relatable human struggles. Bringing her in to write Croft wasn't just about getting good dialogue. It was a declaration this reboot was going to be character first. She was the one tasked with finding the human being under the icon. A job made more difficult by the realities of the industry. As she herself admitted, game writers are often fighting for space to tell the story around gameplay and level design that are already in place. I mean, I'm sure we all know John Carmack's famous statement about storytelling in games being kind of like storytelling in porn. Her work on this project was to take all the pieces the designers were building, find a way to thread a soul throughout them.
You're a Croft.
I don't think I'm that kind of Croft.
Sure you are. You just don't know it yet.
Now, before we get to particulars of this installment in the series, we have to address the other mad lad in the room. A fella by the name of Nathan Drake. By 2013, the Uncharted series was the undisputed king of the genre. The comparisons were inevitable, and on the surface, they were fair, but this wasn't a clone. It was a counter-argument. Uncharted is a pulp adventure, Saturday matinee. Drake is a quippy, indestructible hero who shrugs off explosions. As an analysis in Polygon described it, Uncharted draws from the light-hearted action and adventure of the Indiana Jones films. Tomb Raider, on the other hand, is a grim survival story. Its tone is one of dread, not delight. Where Drake's world is a playground, Lara's is a prison. And that's reflected in the protagonists. Drake is already a hero. He literally starts the game fighting off pirates, with a reporter who came along to record his planned treasure hunting triumph. The 2013 reboot is about the cost of becoming one. Lara starts her adventure not with glory, but with vulnerability and alone. One is a power fantasy. The other is a survival ordeal. Now the story, if you want the whole truth of the thing, is you need to read the whole file of this adventure, not just the cover sheet. We'll take a look at the players, the world, and the symbology that's taking place. Because it's fine to say this is a new Lara, starting fresh out of university. It's how she interacts, it's the things that happen to her and the relationships she has that define her. They are what make up the ogre onion of this video game.
Lara Croft, you are my hero! Hey, Reyes actually just cracked a smile.
Right. Need a signal. A fire. Fuel, flames. I can do that.
So to start with, let's take a closer look at the key players in this tragedy, because the operation wasn't just about one person. It was a complex web of relationships that were tested, broken and forged in the crucible of the island. So the obvious place to start is Lara and Roth, the mentor and the protege. On the surface, Conrad Roth is straightforward. Like I say, he's her mentor, the grizzled ex-marine who acts as a surrogate father to Lara. He's known her since he was a child, telling stories of her running up to him in her penguin pyjamas with her first archaeological find. He's the one who taught her to be tough, who took her climbing on Snowdon. His lessons are the voice in her head when she's alone. This reading explains his actions on the island. Every decision is about protecting Lara. Ultimately, his final decision, his final action, where he sacrifices himself, is about protecting Lara. He strangely advises her not to go after the downed pilot, leaving a man behind rather uncharacteristic for a Marine, because it's too risky for her. He doesn't want her to get hurt. He provides support from afar with a sniper rifle. Every move can be seen as acceptable, as long as his surrogate daughter is safe. But a hidden letter on the island, an unsent confession from Reyes, changes everything. It's a bombshell. Roth has a daughter, Alicia, and he may have just found out. This recontextualizes everything. Suddenly his caution isn't just about protecting Lara, it's about his own survival. Is he staying back from the front lines, not wanting to go running around in the jungle, but stay put and let the others come to him, always at the back with a sniper rifle? He was even the first person on the rescue chopper, because he's trying to stay alive to meet the daughter he never knew. This creates two versions of Roth, both running concurrently. One who doesn't know and acts purely as Lara's protector, and one who does know and is now torn between protecting his protege and getting home to create a life with his real daughter. It's inconclusive on whether or not he even read the letter. Lara asks herself whether or not he knows. And that ambiguity, that question of what he knew and when, is what makes him so damn compelling, and his final sacrifice even more layered in tragedy. Then there's Lara and Sam, the anchor and the asset, as it were. Samantha Nishimura is Lara's anchor to the world that was. A world of dorm rooms, video cameras and youthful optimism. Two young women straight out of university off to change the world and overthrow a system that laughed at Lara's preference face. She represents a normalcy that Lara is fighting to reclaim. On the island, however, this very connection makes her a liability. Sam's lineage and charisma make her the perfect target for Mathias, because these things she says about Himiko, they may actually be in her bloodline. It may not just be stories passed down from mother to daughter for generations. turning her from a friend into the asset that drives the entire conflict. Lara's motivation is rarely about saving herself. She's saving the pilot, she's saving the other crew members. It's almost always, however, about saving Sam. This intense loyalty is both her greatest strength and her most exploitable weakness, a fact Mathias uses against her at every opportunity. Then there's Dr. Whitman, the fallen star. Let's talk about one Dr. James Whitman. On paper he's the leader, the celebrity archaeologist with the TV show and the PhDs. In reality he's a man on the brink. His career is in a nosedive, his marriage has failed, and he's deep in debt. This expedition isn't just another job for him, it's his last desperate shot at redemption. He needs a big career-defining discovery to solve his financial problems and resurrect his reputation. The pressure on him is immense. Now put yourself in his shoes on that ship. He's supposed to be the Attenborough of this operation, the seasoned expert. The crew dynamic feels off. They defer to Roth, the grizzled captain. And worse, his authority is constantly challenged by Lara Croft, the 21-year-old fresh out of university, who doesn't even have a master's degree yet. She's the one with the radical theory, the one who convinces Roth to change course and sail them into the storm. On any other professional expedition, this would be unthinkable. This is the key to his psychology. He feels slighted, disrespected. He's being forced to do content for reality TV show moments, like gutting fish, while this kid is making the big calls. When they crash, his desperation combined with his feeling of being undermined makes him a prime target. He's a coward, yes, but he's also an egotist whose pride has been wounded. For a master manipulator like Mathias, a man like Whitman is an easy mark. Mathias offers him what he craves most, a taste of power, a role in the grand discovery and a way out of his problems. His betrayal isn't just a moment of weakness, it's the final pathetic act of a man who would trade anything and anyone just to feel important again.
I'm the lead archaeologist here.
And when were you last in the field without a TV crew behind you?
Got 30 years experience, 2 PhDs, 1 in East Asian history, so why don't you just stick to boats, Mr. Grimm?
Ship, Dr. Whitman. It's a ship. Don't need a PhD to know that.
The rest of the crew are the cogs in the machine. Critics rightly tagged them as underdeveloped. They each serve a purpose, often as catalysts for Lara's growth through their own fates, but to a much smaller scale than the other characters. So, let's run through these crewmates real quick. Reyes is the tough, pragmatic mechanic, and with the new information from the notes, the most tragic figure on the whole damn island, really. Her anger at Lara, her obsession with getting back to her daughter Alicia, all kind of makes sense. I mean, a lot of what she gets told seems very far-fetched, and I think she kind of represents all of us in that. If we crashed and then were told that something magical was happening and we couldn't just get out of there, we'd probably be Reyes in real life. However, there is one little outburst after Roth dies. Without the note, it's understandable, but misdirected. But with that knowledge of Roth, Reyes and Alicia, the scene becomes something else entirely. It's heartbreaking. We're not just watching the stressed crewmate lash out. We're watching a woman grieve the father of her child, a man she just reached out to, a future she was just starting to consider. And the worst part, no one else knows. The rest of the crew, blind to the real story, tell her she's being unfair. They force her to swallow that profound, specific grief and apologise to Lara. It's a moment of incredible hidden tragedy and some really good writing. Jonah, the ship's cook, is a physically imposing but gentle giant. He's the spiritual heart of the crew, the one most open to the island's unbelievable truths, the one who feels that there's something unnatural, something supernatural even, in the air. He often acts as Lara's moral compass, and as a side note has amazing hair, which they absolutely destroy for the second game, and I don't know why. Alex is the young tech specialist because you needed a tech specialist nerd in a game of this era, or a movie of this era, or a TV show of this. It was just a cliche of everything. He carries an unrequited torch for Lara and ultimately sacrifices himself in an act of brave, if foolhardy, devotion to her. His death feels extra foolhardy because he's literally getting a spanner and a screwdriver off that boat. Like, why? And then finally there's Grim, the gruff, old-school helmsman of the Endurance. A tough survivor who refuses to be taken captive, choosing a warrior's death and sacrificing himself to save Lara from the Solarii. A man who hasn't touched a drink in a long time since he headbutted the Loch Ness Monster. I like Grim.
With you. So I was on the lock, right? And this thing comes looming at me. Looming out of the water it was. So I give it a old Glasgow kiss, you know. Gets you out of trouble 9 times out of 10, that does.
But every game tends to only be as good as its antagonist. And we have Mathias, the Dark Reflection. Mathias is a cautionary tale, a case study in what happens when a good mind is left to rot in a bad place. The game's hidden journals reveal he wasn't always a monster, he was a teacher, a rational man who shipwrecked on Yamatai decades ago. The island didn't just break him, it gave him a new twisted purpose. He looked at the impossible storms, saw the face of a god, and built a religion around the myth of Himiko to give himself and his fellow survivors a sense of control in a place of absolute chaos. Somewhere along the way, however, the teacher died, and the brutal warlord was born. This is where the first stark contrast to Lara appears, where Lara, faced with the same unbelievable horror, clings to her humanity and the drive to protect others. Mathias lets his hope curdle into a fanatical obsession. He forges the Solarii not for inspiration but through fear and will. He understands that idle hands and wandering minds lead to dissent, so he keeps his men busy with endless, often pointless tasks. Restoration projects, patrols, scavenging. Anything to keep them from thinking too hard about the situation or about overthrowing him. His inner circle, his main enforcers, were the Russians, men as brutal and unforgiving as the island itself. His control is absolute, enforced through a culture of ruthless obedience. We see it in key moments. Like when he orders his men to fire on the bridge, knowing full well it will kill his own people. He executes one, just for a moment's hesitation. For Mathias, his men are not people, they are tools, expendable resources in his decades-long war to get off the island. And that's where the real tragedy of the Solarii lies. If you wait before engaging them, sometimes you can overhear their conversations, and it's not the ranting of fanatics. It's the mindless chatter of regular guys doing their job. Literally doing things like hiding from the rain, or not really wanting to get anywhere near the Russians. This brutal, violent existence has become their normality. You realise that with the right leadership, this could have been something else. With the intelligence and nurturing of the teacher he once was, Mathias could have united his men and the Endurance crew. Together, they might have figured out the island's secret and found a way to escape that wasn't paved with psychosis and human sacrifice. But the nurturing teacher was long gone, leaving under the paranoid warlord, and that's the final compelling parallel with Lara. Both have the exact same final goal, get off the island, but where Lara, through immense loss and suffering, learns to lead and protect, Mathias chose to dominate and sacrifice. Where she sacrifices her own safety and innocence to save her friends, he sacrifices his own men for the slimmest chance of his own salvation. He's a stark look at what Lara could become if she ever lost her moral compass, if she let the island's brutality consume her entirely. He's the echo of a future she must fight to avoid.
Any other non-believers?
There is a bit of a twist though. The most developed character in this whole thing isn't a person, it's the island itself. And critics were pretty much unanimous on this. Yamatai wasn't just a backdrop, it was an antagonist, a museum, and a puzzle box all at once. At times it felt like the island actively hates you as well. The hostility of Yamatai is a constant. The place feels engineered for death, a gauntlet of both natural and man-made dangers. The natural world is a threat. Vicious wolf packs hunt you in the forest, and a wrong step can send you plummeting from a cliff face or into a raging debris-filled river. But the man-made dangers are more insidious. The island's littered with traps, created by those who came before you. You'll stumble into makeshift snare traps, get your leg caught in a brutal bear trap, or navigate claustrophobic tunnels lined with spikes. It may not even be a deliberate trap. It may be something as simple as a plane that's held its place for over 60 years, but decides to fall just after you've used it to cross a river. Every corner holds a potential end, a testament to the paranoia and violence of its previous inhabitants. This constant threat, this feeling that the very ground you walk on wants you dead, that's a core part of the game's oppressive atmosphere. Beyond the dangers, the island is a master of environmental storytellings. It was a place where layers of history were written on top of each other, each one ending in tragedy. This is the island's greatest strength. You start on a surface level in the scavenger dens and coastal forests, places defined by the modern era of shipwrecked survivors. The architecture is brutal and utilitarian, corrugated iron, makeshift shelters, and the rusting hulks of ships, all lashed together in a monument of desperation. Then you dig deeper and find another era. The World War II era bunkers, say. There are concrete tombs filled with derelict cannons and decaying military equipment, ghosts of another failed operation, another group of men who thought they could tame this place, and lost. And beneath it all is the oldest layer, the ancient kingdom of Yamatai. You see it in the cliffside mountain villages, the sprawling monastery, and the final ancient ziggurat. The island's history isn't linear, it's chaotic, violent. And Lara is just the latest piece being added to it. Finally though, the island is a massive interconnected puzzle box. Its layout is a masterclass in environmental denial. A semi-open world built on the principle of Metroidvania progression. Paths are constantly blocked, not by invisible walls, but by tangible physical obstacles. A sheer cliff is a dead end until you find a climbing axe. A rope-wrangled barrier is just scenery until you get the rope arrow. A metal barricade, a roadblock, until that shotgun blast. This design forces you to constantly re-evaluate your surrounding. An area you simply run through in the first hour becomes a dense network of new paths and secrets once you have the right gear. The island itself is a lock, and Lara's growing arsenal of tools and skills are the keys. This transforms traversal from just getting from point A to point B into a constant engaging puzzle, or figuring out how to conquer the environment that is so actively trying to kill you. The only minor criticism I have of this is, with the pacing of the game, it does sometimes feel unnatural for Lara to go back looking for an extra journal or an extra little bit of treasure to find. The points in the game where it feels like you're not desperately trying to rescue someone or desperately trying to survive, and would be willing to go back, are few and far between. Just that little bit of engagement breaking, but otherwise, I think it is really, really well done. What's really interesting with the island though is it's all grounded in a real-world cold case. Queen Himiko isn't just some made-up fantasy, she's a real-world 3rd century shaman queen. The oldest accounts we have come from a Chinese text, the Record of the Three Kingdoms, describing her kingdom, Yamatai Koku, and coming out with some pretty outlandish stuff like she lives with 1,000 handmaids and 1 male servant. But the absolute kicker is, nobody knows where it was. The Chinese text gives us a puzzling set of directions, and that's created a bar fight that's been going on between historians for 200 years. You've got the Kyushu theory and the Kinki theory, both with compelling evidence from sites like Yoshinagari and Makimuku. The game's writers took that existing, that legend, that real academic mystery, and they gave it a home in the Dragon's Triangle, which is pretty cool. if you really want to understand a lot of what happens on the island, you have to follow the smoke. Fire is the island's native tongue, and it's inextricably linked to Lara's evolution. It's the elemental witness to her transformation. At first, fire is a force used against her, a symbol of the island's overwhelming hostility. The most powerful enemies she faces are the ones with hurling Molotovs and lobbing fire arrows at her. But look closer at the key moments in her arc. Her first kill isn't in a quiet corner. It takes place in a burning Solarii village. The world is literally on fire as her innocence is extinguished, the pyre of her old life burning down around her. Fire is her only source of comfort, the base camps the only points of safety, beacons of warmth in a cold hell. It's by the fire that she rests, reflects on her journal and reforges herself. It's where she takes the salvage of this broken world and uses it to upgrade her tools to become stronger. Fire is a sanctuary. The real turning point in the monastery fire, it's a massive set piece, but its symbolic weight is even heavier. She goes into that inferno as a desperate survivor, hunted. She emerges from the flame, predator. The fire burns away her fear, and what's left is pure resolve. This is a moment her demeanour irrevocably changes. The moment she goes from "I have to get out of here" to "I'm coming for you all." And it culminates in the final act. She learns to speak language herself, first by acquiring fire arrows, by using environmental fire points to shoot and set her enemies ablaze, taking the island's weapon and making it her own. But the final statement is the most powerful. She doesn't just end the fires, she ends the island's curse. She destroys Himiko's ancient decaying remains with a lit torch, with flame. She takes the element that represented terror and destruction and uses it as a tool of purification and finality. Fire on Yamatai isn't just an effect, it's a character arc. It's the force that tries to destroy her, the light that offers her refuge, and the weapon she ultimately wields to claim her victory. Now, let's take a look at the chronology of the event. The story is a gripping tale of endurance, sacrifice, and the darkness that can lurk within both ancient myths and human nature. It can be broken down into 3 distinct acts: the initial shipwreck and struggle for survival, the discovery of the island's secrets and rise of a new threat, and the ultimate confrontation to save Lara's friends and escape. So I'm not going to go really deep into each individual beat of this story because, well, I imagine you've already played the game, or if you haven't and you're actually here, then it's well worth checking out yourself, but we'll go through the basic steps, each act as it were. Act 1 is kind of a crucible of survival. The narrative opens with a 21-year-old Lara on her first major archaeological expedition on the ship Endurance. Alongside a crew that is made up mostly of her friends and includes the mentor Conrad Roth and best friend Sam, Lara is in search of the lost kingdom of Yamatai, a conviction that the mythical Sun Queen Himiko is buried on an island within the treacherous Dragon's Triangle. This leads the expedition into a violent and unnatural storm. The ship is torn apart and Lara is separated from the other survivors, washing ashore on a mysterious and hostile island. Her initial moments are a brutal awakening. She is captured by a scavenger, escapes a claustrophobic and gruesome cave, and is forced to tend to her own severe injuries. This opening act is relentless trial by fire designed to break the naive and academic Lara. A pivoting and harrowing moment comes when she is forced to kill a man for the first time to save her own life. An act that leaves her deeply shaken. It also marks a significant turning point in her transformation. This act focuses heavily on Lara's vulnerability and resourcefulness. Armed with little more than a makeshift bow, she must learn to hunt, navigate, and survive the treacherous environment, all while fending off the island's hostile inhabitants, a violent all-male cult known as the Solarii. The players experience her fear and desperation firsthand, forging a powerful connection with this new, more humanised version of the character. Act 2 is based around the Sun Queen's curse and the Solarii threat. As Lara reunites with some of the survivors, including the charismatic but increasingly unstable Whitman, the nature of the island's dangers begin to unfold. The Solarii, led by the fanatical Mathias, worship the Sun Queen Himiko and believe she is the key to escaping the island. The brutal rituals and unwavering devotion pose a constant and escalating threat. A central mystery of this act is the perpetual storms that prevent anyone from leaving the island. Through discovering ancient texts and exploring forgotten tombs, Lara uncovers the legend of Himiko, a powerful queen who could control the weather. The storms are revealed to be a manifestation of her restless spirit trapped within her decaying body and preventing any soul from escaping her domain. The stakes are raised significantly when the Solarii kidnap Sam. Believing she is a descendant of Himiko and the perfect vessel to transfer the Sun Queen's soul, thereby calming the storms. This personalises the conflict for Lara, shifting her primary motivation from mere survival to the desperate rescue of her friend. This act sees Lara's skills as a survivor and fighter grow exponentially as she battles through Solarii strongholds and delves deeper into the island's dark past. She also witnesses the death of several crew members, further hardening her resolve and forging her into the woman that she becomes by the end of the game. The final act is the ascent of the Tomb Raider. It's a relentless and action-packed push to the climax. Having embraced her role as protector and warrior, Lara makes her way to the ancient monastery where Mathias intends to perform the ritual on Sam. This final section of the game is a full-scale assault, showcasing Lara's mastery of her newfound skills in combat and traversal. The ultimate climax is a multi-layered confrontation. Lara must battle through the elite storm guard, Himiko's undead samurai protectors, before facing Mathias at the pinnacle of the monastery. This final battle is a brutal and personal struggle, not just for Sam's life, but for the soul of the island itself. By defeating Mathias and destroying Himiko's ancient remains, Lara finally breaks the curse, causing the storms to dissipate. The ritual is stopped, Sam is saved. The surviving members of the Endurance are able to escape the island. The story concludes with Lara on a boat which has rescued her, forever changed by her ordeal. She is no longer the wide-eyed academic who set out on an adventure. The horrors she witnessed and the actions she was forced to take have forged her into a survivor. Her final words reveal a newfound purpose, a determination to uncover the world's other hidden mysteries, hinting at the future adventures of the Tomb Raider. The story is powerful and gritty, the reimagining of a classic character, trading invincibility for vulnerability, and in doing so, creating a more compelling and relatable hero.
We'll be home soon.
I'm not going home.
Next, we'll take a look at the gameplay, because that's really important in the telling of the story, and it is brutal and resourceful. The mechanics of survival were everything. The entire gameplay loop was built to reinforce a central theme, the evolution of the survivor. This was all built on a foundation of progression. You have an experience point system. Nearly everything you do, from hunting a deer to finding a relic, grants you XP. You spend that XP at base camps on skills broken into 3 trees: Survivor for taking a beating and finding more salvage, Hunter for weapons handling, and Brawler for getting your hands dirty. At the same camps, you use salvage, bits of scrap collected from crates and bodies, to upgrade your gear. A rusty pistol becomes a steady firearm, a flimsy bow becomes a powerful long-range weapon. Games Radar noted that the transformation into a powerful heroine feels noticeable and natural, because you are the one bolting on the upgrades. The combat was a big departure, a cover-based system that was a massive improvement. A standout feature was the context-sensitive cover, where Lara automatically uses her environment without a dedicated button press. But the star of the show was the bow and arrow. I quite like Kotaku's review where it said it gives you a way to weaponise all that angst, that pulling the string taut and letting fly feels like dishing out comeuppance. It was a perfect tool for this survivor. Then you have the traversal puzzles. The climbing axe was the core tool, letting Lara scale specific rock faces and serving as a brutal melee weapon. As the game progressed, you'd get more tools, like rope arrows, which opened up new sections of the hubs in a light Metroidvania style. This is where the puzzles came in. They were almost entirely physics-based, usually found in the optional tombs. And quite interesting, they weren't about obscure symbols. They were about using fire, weight and water to manipulate your environment. And this is one of the central debates of the Yamatai adventure. On one side you have, for example, PC Gamer, which argued the game fails to trust the player, that it rewards passive acquiescence. To quote them, "You're told you're seeing a person discovering their strength. What you're shown is someone discovering that the god of zipline placement loves them very, very much." Then on the other hand, you have people like Polygon, who claimed the game shows remarkable confidence and isn't afraid to give the players control. It's quite interesting to see two separate opinions so far apart on this. Personally, I think it's a mixture of them both. The game does naturally have to give you that god of zipline placement. It's the way that video games work. And it does always give you that control. I think the game works really well with the systems. My only issue, like I say, is with the traversing back and forth. I find there's very few areas in the game where it felt natural for Lara to go back and look for some extra bits and bats, a couple of extra relics or a letter. But that's just me. However, if you did go off the straight line and start looking for extra bits, if you did decide that you wanted to go back and open up that tomb, open up that extra area, you found the real story. This wasn't an accident, it was a core part of the narrative design. Rhianna Pratchett laid out the blueprint. She explained they built the story in 3 layers for 3 types of players. The optional tombs and collectibles weren't just side quests, they were the second and third layers of the story. The tombs are the one place, as PC Gamer noted, that solutions feel like they originate from your actions. GameSpot argued they served as a character building through gameplay, showing how Lara develops a taste for the tomb raiding. They did get a bit of a hit though, because they're all very small and very simple. They're not really tombs. They're more a cave with a couple of bits that you need to jerry-rig around. Except for that one with the wind. The wind one where you jump on that's just, I hate that tomb.
For the town. How the hell are we gonna get it up the stairs? Good question. Let's just leave it here for now.
So, on top of the narrative and the mechanics, the obvious part of this is the presentation, the cinematic grit. Let's talk about the feeling of the thing, that grit. It wasn't just in the story, it was a core part of the presentation. A filter layered over every frame. The art direction was impeccable, creating a world that felt both breathtakingly beautiful and actively hostile. But the real masterstroke was how that world left its mark on Lara herself. Her character modelled a dynamic canvas for her ordeal. She didn't just get a little dirty, she accumulated layers of mud, grime and blood that would only wash away in the pouring rain. You could see her shiver in the cold, her posture changing to reflect exhaustion and injury. It was constant. It was a powerful visual reminder of everything she was enduring. Then there were the set pieces. These were moments of controlled chaos, the blockbuster sequences designed to overwhelm your senses. You're not just climbing a tower, you're climbing it as the rungs fall away from the ladder. The sequences were spectacular, but PC Gamer kinda got it right when he said that the game sometimes slips into a cutscene that pretends that it hasn't. They highlight the game's central tension, the battle between player agency, in a heavily scripted spectacle. And you can't talk about grit without talking about the death animations. This was a major point of contention at the time. Failing a Q2E or mistiming a jump didn't result in a fade to black. The game would often subject you to a close-up, brutally detailed depiction of Lara's end. Impaled on rebar, crushed by a boulder, a broken neck. Polygon called it unnecessary, a split second of gruesome voyeurism in an otherwise empowering game. And my personal thoughts on this are, it is quite violent, and it does add sort of a level to the game of that it's a step further than just a simple game over screen. A ragdolled Lara. But also, it's Tomb Raider, and this really was a symbology that we're moving to a more mature audience. I have an 8-year-old girl. I enjoy playing video games with her. And it kind of sucks that most of the female video game leads now are in games that she can't play. Whereas the old Lara, she calls it an hobby rather than a platformer. Roblox kids. But she can. And she loves Lara Croft, and she can't play this. So it really was a movement to a more mature audience while getting rid of the youngers.
The chosen one has escaped! Get out there and
But let's have a proper talk about the violence then. It was the game's most debated feature, and this goes beyond the ludonarrative dissonance. We're talking about the core theme. The critics kept asking was, is it necessary or is it gratuitous? The evidence is conflicting. On the one hand, violence is essential to the origin story. The developers wanted to show the cost of survival. But then it gives you XP for creative kills and rewards you with brutal finishes. The death animations, which again Polygon called gruesome voyeurism, show Lara being impaled and broken in excruciating detail. Gamer Sotry described it as being about dissonance between a vulnerable, relatable character and the cold-blooded killer she has to become. It argues the game wants to have it both ways, making her a killer without being willing to commit to the psychological toll. Is it a thoughtful exploration of trauma, or is it just a cheap feel-bad spectacle? It's a little bit inconclusive, and it's an interesting debate, but to go from, oh my god, Roth, I just killed a man, to extra points for a headshot and then a cool shotgun execution, you couldn't have kept the game going with her feeling bad, because a game about Lara crying for 20 hours wouldn't have been anywhere near as interesting, unless you're a psychology major. What are your thoughts on the violence for this? I'm actually really interested. But we've digressed a little bit here in this violence section, and you know, maybe it's just part of me growing up with Lara, seeing her in such a different, brutalised way. Maybe it's just me not being able to play my daughter that makes it a bit more interesting. Let's get back onto topic. Let's maybe have a look at the hype, controversy and acclaim, the reception of the game. And the hype was immense, but so was the controversy. At E3 in 2012, an executive producer set off a firestorm when he told Kotaku the goal was to make players want to protect Lara. The comment dominated the discourse for months. When it did come out though, the critics got it, even with their reservations. IGN gave it a 9.1, GameSpot called it a terrific origin story. The numbers are interesting. At first the game sold 3.4 million copies in a month. But Square Enix, as Square Enix likes to do, just ask Adam Jensen, they called it a failure against their forecasts. By 2017 it had moved, however, to over 11 million units, becoming the best-selling Tomb Raider game in the history of the franchise. A complete vindication, and definitely a very good thing, because, like I say, Square Enix do like to pop a franchise on the shelf when they can. Which gives us its legacy. And so what's the final word on the game? It's more of a landmark than a reboot. And it was a foundation. Jeff Wajcs confirmed that because of the feedback of the 2013 game's Tombs, for Reyes, we put a lot of emphasis into our Tombs. But it went further. The Survivor version of Lara became the definitive modern take on the character. That hit Hollywood. The 2018 Tomb Raider film is a direct adaptation of the game's tone, aesthetic, and even its plot. The desperate survival, the gritty realism, the makeshift bow, the shipwreck, it's all in there. IndieWire reviewed the film and noted it borrows its best ideas from the 2013 reboot of the video game series. The game didn't just reboot a franchise, it created a new blueprint that was successful enough for it to be adapted to the film industry, to get the game back into the mainstream. It gave us a Lara Croft who earned her name, who fought for it. The one where a legend is forged not in a vault of gold, but in the mud, in the blood, and in the fire. So that's it. That's the video. That's my thoughts. It's as academic as I can make it. I've put a list of sources somewhere. I read a lot of reviews. I saw a lot of things. I watched a bunch of developer interviews. I read a couple of books about Himiko, which turned out to be completely pointless for me to read. What are your thoughts on the game? I personally didn't play the game originally because I couldn't be arsed with QTEs and, you know, the Nathan Drakeification. Turns out I was very, very wrong. It's a very good game. I really enjoy it. I've completed it a couple of times now. What are your thoughts? Let me know down below. And if you've made it this far, a like and subscribe is always good. We'll do all 3 of the Tomb Raiders. We're probably going to do the earlier Tomb Raiders as well. I'm currently working on some Resident Evil stuff. And the next video is Mathias, which should be up in a couple of weeks. Okay. I'm Mark the Pump Dev. You've been awesome. Have a good one.